Hi guys, Chris Buckler here, episode 22 of Estate Agent Mastery. Now, I'm joined by Mark from Rex. Mark, I've always loved our conversations because you've looked at stuff from a techie point of view, but for the agent, so we had to have you on. So my question for you is, Mark, if you're an agent in Birmingham, Belfast or Bognor Regis, I want 3 tips from you that we can implement into our business tomorrow. Hit me.
Oh, cheers, Chris. That was very, very kind introduction. So, yeah, number one, I would say what we call sort of laddering techniques. So, whenever you're going out and doing a viewing, doing valuation, whatever it is that you do, what can you add on to that to do to do prospecting? So, every viewing that you go on, how many doors are you knocking? How many flyers are you dropping, etc. And how can you create this so that every single time you do any activity, there are other activities tagged onto that in kind of a laddering fashion. So the simplest ones are when you go out and do a valuation, are you knocking the 3 doors one side, the 3 doors the other, and the 6 doors the other side of the street? So it could be door knocking, could be flyer drops. And then off the back of that, are you also running a targeted social media campaign for that local area or that smaller vicinity? So every single activity that you do should have some other form of prospecting added onto it to kind of reduce the time spent just forcing yourself to do prospecting, which a lot of people don't really enjoy. Can you tag it onto other activities? And the agents we have as clients who are doing this are some of the top performing agents that we have as clients, obviously.
Fine. So that's a real Aussie way of doing things, right? And I know Aussies are Rex CRM, and you guys have been here for a while now, and it very much is fit for purpose here. But what would you say to the Brit listening to this podcast going, I don't have time for that. Like, if I'm going to evaluation, my diary's so busy, I'm not going to have time to door knock. I'm a busy guy.
Yeah, I get it, but at the same sort of time, like when are you blocking out your time for prospecting? The way in which you're going to have a full or better business the entire time is not consistently running like a hamster in a wheel, like sitting down and realizing I've not got enough instructions or I've not got enough of a pipeline in a month's time, then picking up a call list of everyone you lost the valuation to in the last 6 months and having a really transactional phone call with them. That is a much more of a waste of time than spending an extra 2 to 5 minutes every valuation to just go and put a flyer through a door on some others. Or if you sense a really great opportunity where there's a board 10 doors down on a property that you're doing a viewing at and you're consistently going back and forward to doing that viewing, knocking on that door every time you go, not every time you go maybe, but praise and
I
P
like
method,
it
let's
every
say.
time.
But knocking the door that fairly frequently. I mean, that's far, far less of a waste of a time than it is trying to have transactional phone calls that are only being made because you have an ascertained like KPI to try and reach without actually really thinking about the future too much.
Okay, fine. So I think that makes sense. In fact, it definitely makes sense. I think the British psyche is very much like you say. I can be more aggressive because it's my podcast. We're busy fools as agents a lot of the time, and we put off prospecting, right? And don't see it as important and rely on the brand heavily. Where if you own your own estate agency, I think you do these things, right? Because whether you're a self-employed model or a business owner, because you need to drive business. And I think I always say to people, your number one job as an estate agent is to prospect and look for business. It's lead generation, because you could be the best estate agent in the world, but if no one knows who you are, you're not doing anything. So I completely agree with that. Give me, just before we move on to point 2, give me another laddering technique that you would recommend or you've seen work well.
So in our world in tech, it is always going out to who is if you're doing a demo to someone in Bognor Regis, for example, every single estate agent in Bognor Regis is going to get a phone call later on that day or going to get some form of email prospecting for them. So looking at things locally. If you're using bits of tech, it could be letters out to withdrawn properties in that particular street, or the one if you wanted to use Rex Reach would be um, when every time you sell a property, £50 spent on a just sold advert going out digitally, like a digital equivalent of a letterbox drop. Really, really simple thing. But the way in which you think about it is every time I do this, then I do that. as part of like also almost like an automated process in your brain.
Yeah, we had a really good stat from Simon Gates, who's an advisor to our business the other day, and it was 49% of withdrawn properties will return back to the market within 18 months. So I completely agree. Okay, so start laddering, start utilizing your time and being more efficient, and stop being busy fools. I like it, Mark. You called them busy fools, did you? Right, tip two. We're in Birmingham now. What have you got for us?
What we've got in Birmingham. So I would look at this holistically as a business process. So whether you're running a one branch agency in Birmingham, whether you're a self-employed agent in Birmingham, whether you've got a 10 branch office that covers the whole of the West Midlands, what is the overall arching like big hairy ass goal of your business for that 12-month period? And how do we intertwine every single thing that we're training, that we're doing as part of the business? How are we integrating our whole business into that? So if you have 400 properties under management at the moment, and your goal in the next 12 months is to get 500 properties under management, how do you look at that delta, and how are you approaching going from 400 to 500? Well, you've got to have real strategy behind that, and that can breed into how your agents operate, and it breeds into how you use your tech as well. So we talk about this quite a lot in sales demos. If your goal is going from 400 to 500, so an additional 100 properties under management, how many landlords, based on your average managed properties per landlord, how many landlords does that mean you need to get on board, and how are you going to organically get those landlords? Well, a really simple way, if you breed it into the whole business, so you incentivize your agents, you build in processes within your CRM, is to make sure that at the end of every single phone call that any of your negotiators or anyone within the team has with any new applicant is, can I just ask you one more question at the end of this? Out of interest, do you own any other properties, or are you a landlord? And if you then are marking that in your CRM as yes or no on a landlord, just asking that one extra question at the end, you can then tick that box to say they are a landlord. And further little questions can come off the back of that, which will open up all those opportunities when you review that data at the end of 30 days, at the end of 60 days, or whenever it is. So out of interest, what's your plan for your portfolio within your next 12 months? Are you looking at acquiring more properties? Are you just consolidating, or are you going to be reducing your managed portfolios? And if so, how are you looking at that? What's the plan for 6 months? How many managed properties do you have, and do you self-manage? And if you're asking those four questions, just as an example, and you do that with every single, or you try and add that in at the end of the conversation, every single person you're speaking with, there's going to be an absolute ton of data that you can pull into one report and say, right, here are 50 opportunities we've got of 250 managed properties. We're going to do newsletters, we're going to do social media ads, we're going to do whatever we can to try and target this particular cohort. And that is what's going to grow us between 400 and 500.
I love that. So we call it millimeter improvement. So what can I do to get a millimeter better each day? And in the self-employed agency world, we ask people to say to their friends, family, loved ones, whoever, at the end of each call, who in your world has a property related requirement I can help with? Not a yes, no, but who in your world triggers them to think. And you got to think, as a self-employed agent, if you have, I'm making up 1,000 conversations a year, how many times it'll bob over the roads on with an online agent who's been struggling to sell, or we're thinking of selling in Buckinghamshire, but you don't cover there, do you, Chris? No, but one of our agents does at the estate agency. It's the same thing. I really like the big, hairy, audacious goal from Google, because we talk about that a lot on the breakdown. Curveball time. You've obviously prepped that. I really like your answer. Give me another way of breaking down that big goal into a digestible chunk, and how would you maybe communicate that to the team as well?
Cool. So I think it's important for the whole team to buy into the business and why the business is going down approach. And I think a lot of businesses, certainly ones I've been in the past, mistake this in thinking that if we're just involving our whole team in presentation of what we want to achieve or what has been achieved, they're going to buy into it. They're not, unless they feel really, really like they're a part of it. And so if that other 100 properties under management, if you actually achieve that, what does it mean? Well, it's going to mean this in terms of bonuses, but it's also going to mean this in terms of this is what will happen next year, and what our trajectory of growth will look like, and what it will mean for hopefully better quality of life for everyone who's within that business. So really kind of getting them to buy into it, looking at what their motivational factors are. So not everyone is motivated just by money. Is someone motivated by knowing that they are the sales manager of the biggest agency in their town, and to get to the biggest agency in their town, they need to have the biggest market share, for example. So looking at the different motivations, and I'd probably say just like making short-term incentivizations on this as well. So the simple one I explained about then is, well, if someone's asking this question, they find a landlord who's got more than 2 properties under management and self-manage. That's a pretty fantastic opportunity. If you open that opportunity, trying to get that inbound lead, that as an inbound lead is going to cost you what, like 30-40 quid per lead. Well, if you just put in a bonus of an additional £5 per time they've asked that question, that is so much better spent than going towards your team than it is actually just pounding the letter drops or whatever it is, and then having £40, £30 per inbound lead.
Yep. I like it. I really like it. I completely agree. And then if you've got some great CRM, you can run campaigns and all sorts of wizardry. So, okay, fine. We're up in Belfast now. Can you do the accent?
Yeah. I can't, and I've got too many prospects in Belfast at the moment to try and butcher that opportunity.
Fair enough.
Can you do it?
I can, but not on this podcast. I'll do it after. What have we got? Third and final tip.
So you almost stole it in the last segment in asking for referrals. So not just asking the question, I think you specifically asked, but asking directly for referrals from positive opportunities. So again, it's a little bit to do with the laddering. But I was speaking to a Rex client. This must have been 13, 14 months ago. And they were talking about our tracks function. And they were saying one of the things that we've done is 3 months after we transact on a property, we are picking up the phone to both the buyer and the seller in that transaction, asking them how they're getting on in their property, if they're enjoying the local area, and have they got any friends or family who are looking at moving that could benefit from our services that they could refer us to. This particular single branch agency with just 4 staff within the agency wrote £65,000 worth of business in 2023 just from picking up the phone to past buyers and asking for referrals. Like, how much is that costing them? It's costing them, what, you sell 60, 70, 80 properties a year, 60, 70, 80 extra phone calls. Really, really simple.
It's a grand a phone call if you look at it the other way.
Grand a phone call if you look at it the other way, yeah.
Yeah, I like it. And I guess this isn't a plug for Rex, but any decent CRM, that's really easy to set up and push in and set reminders for, right? So
yeah. That's, you can set a one-off reminder, or you can use something that kind of staggers your reminders automatically and makes it really, really easy to build processes like this.
Okay, fine. I really like today, and we've done it in really good time. It's been short, sharp, and shit. They swore then. It's been good. It's been good. I'm going to do something I don't normally do. I did it last week with Chris Watkin, and maybe I'm going to start doing it going forward. Who knows? But as a supplier to the industry, you obviously work with Rex, and that's the software that you put out. We've known each other for a while. There's loads of great ones out there, so I'm not going to endorse any. But if you were to plug it for 30 seconds, what would you say the best thing about Rex is and why?
Best thing about Rex. Best thing about Rex is that it is not just a transactional CRM that's just going to help you manage that transaction. Where we have talked a lot about today about really ensuring that your tech is intertwined within your business, it really sits at the center of the business. So if you have that big, hairy, audacious goal of bringing in twice the amount of revenue that you brought in last year, or bringing in X amount of properties under management, whatever it is, that will sit at the center of the business. It will power your salespeople, it will power your admin people, it will power the whole business to getting you towards that goal. And I think that's the best thing about Rex, as well as the success and customer success people we have within the business who make businesses like the estate agency so fantastic at what they do.
I like that. Great plug. Mark, thank you so much for your time. You got some gold in there. I will catch you soon.